In May 1991, a 14-year-old boy escaped from an apartment in Milwaukee. He was disoriented, barely dressed, bleeding. Neighbors called the police. This is the haunted truth. 2 officers arrived, spoke to the man who lived in the apartment, and returned the boy to him. That boy was murdered that same night. He was Dahmer's 13th victim, and he could have been the last. Welcome back to the serial killer edition of The Haunted Truth. Tonight we cover the case that didn't just shock the world. It exposed the failures that allowed it to continue far longer than it ever should have. Jeffrey Dahmer, Milwaukee, 1978 to 1991. 17 confirmed victims, all young men, most lured to his apartment with the promise of money for photographs. What happened inside that apartment is something investigators who entered it said they never fully recovered from. Dahmer wasn't just killing, he was attempting to create what he described in his own words as permanent companions. He drilled holes into the skulls of living victims and injected acid directly into their brains, trying to leave them alive, but without the ability to leave. None of them survived the experiments. When that failed, he turned to preservation, skulls arranged on shelves, a barrel of acid dissolving remains, a refrigerator that investigators opened and immediately closed again. For 13 years he lived like this, working at a chocolate factory during the day, attending church with his grandmother, described by co-workers as quiet and polite. And then there was the apartment. Neighbors had complained for months about the smell, about sounds. One woman said she heard a chainsaw at 3 in the morning and reported it. Nothing was done. Here is the question that defined this case. How many times did the system have a chance to stop him, and didn't? The 14-year-old boy returned by police was not the only near miss. Dahmer had a prior conviction. He was on probation when most of the murders occurred. His probation officer never visited his apartment, not once. He was finally stopped in July 1991 when Tracy Edwards, his intended 18th victim, escaped with a handcuff still attached to his wrist and flagged down a police car on the street. When officers entered the apartment, they understood immediately what they had walked into. Dahmer cooperated fully, confessed to everything, explained everything. In interviews, he was calm, articulate, and without remorse in the way most people understand it. He was beaten to death in prison in 1994 by a fellow inmate. But here is what stays with you long after the case is closed. A boy escaped, neighbors called, officers came, and they sent him back. Comment below, which serial killer do you want The Haunted Truth to cover next? Your comment decides episode 7. This is The Haunted Truth. The stories that were buried don't stay buried forever.